Hello there, this is James Scrofford, known as 1978, and before we begin today, one thing that always genuinely pisses me off, especially when I hear it from one of my best friends, is the claim that you just hate Hollywood movies, because first of all, define a Hollywood movie, and secondly, define hate. Of course, even if you could, it would be completely beside the point, because like declaring that all Republicans are racists, all Democrats are motivated by white or liberal guilt, and all socialists merely want free stuff, declaring that I simply hate Hollywood movies or what have you, is simply another example of what I describe as concrete-mindedness. The lazy and entirely self-serving internal narratives that we construct in order to make ourselves feel better, usually through making ourselves feel intellectually and morally superior, by avoiding actually thinking about or attempting to understand the issue in more depth, in this case dismissing me as a racist, anti-American, a Koreaboo or what have you, simply because it's easier and less uncomfortable than addressing or even acknowledging my points. And the reason why I wanted to lay this out at the beginning of this video is that although it's inevitable that people will insist that I just hate Rick and Morty or that I simply don't get it, the truth is that just as is the case with the overwhelming majority of the movies that I watch, no matter where in the world or in what language they were made, no different from Adventure Time, Archer, and all of the other cult, edgy, and quote-unquote adult animations that I've watched over the course of the last few years to see what all the fuss was about, I find Rick and Morty entirely meaningless. Not because I don't get it, but on the contrary, because there is nothing to get. That being gifted and cursed with a mind that automatically dissects and analyses everything that I watch, read, or listen to, I almost always figure out what the creators are trying to say and how they're planning to say it within the first half an hour at the most, and thus usually end up being bored, full stop. In the case of Rick and Morty in particular, because it has precisely one point which it's long since ploughed into the ground, meaning that no different from Adventure Time and the rest of them, while it's an entertaining distraction at times to be sure, in my humble opinion, it's ultimately a total waste of time. Indeed, if you're wondering why I've never made a video about all of those other series if I did actually watch them in full, the answer is because I had literally nothing to say. Honestly, you have no idea how many animes, animated series, live-action TV series and movies I plough through and then forget about almost as soon as they're done, because what I'm looking for more than anything else in movies, TV shows and anime is something to stimulate my mind and my passions, something that I won't completely dissect in 5 minutes, and thus something that will keep me interested and engaged. And while the original Full Metal Alchemist, for example, no, not Brotherhood, Brotherhood was a pile of Kentucky Fried bullshit, fight me, left me with so much to think and talk about that I ended up making 3 videos about it, the lone point/joke of Rick and Morty is that you wouldn't want to be the companion of someone like the Doctor in real life, because being able to travel through time and space and or dimensions completely detached from all reality and consequences, he would be an arrogant and amoral sociopath who treats human life with utter contempt, either failing or refusing to use his massive intellect and godlike power to save and improve the lives of others, because he regards us as nothing but meaningless dust motes in an infinite multiverse. To which I say, congratulations, creators of Rick and Morty, because that was only the entire point of the original 3 series of Doctor Who that were made over 50 years ago.
I tell you this much, Doctor. Wherever this machine of yours lands next, I'm getting off. If your researchers have so little regard for human life, then I want no part of it.
Even leaving Doctor Who aside, though, Rick and Morty is nothing but a family/relationship drama with science fiction elements, because literally all 3 seasons so far have been about how his daughter's family deals with and reacts to the presence of the drunken, sociopathic, and nihilistic not-Time Lord who abandoned her as a child when he crowbars his way back into their lives like the abusive and neglectful parasite that he is, intentionally or not, seeking to destroy them all by making them as lonely and as miserable as he is in order to make himself feel better, pretty much by always making the same godforsaken point in every sodding episode, a fact so obvious that they even devote an entire episode to hanging a lampshade on it.
I figured it out!
Congrats, you did it!
It was a bit. All of the descriptors apply to all of you. Drunk Rick's point is that none of you are very special or different. That's always his point.
And worse, bearing in mind that Rick and Morty is supposed to be a comedy, when you strip away the fact that Rick and other characters commit mass murder in what is apparently intended to be a funny way, all that we are left with is the description of a cliched grimdark protagonist as summarized by terrible writing advice.
Our hero should be completely amoral. Wait, I meant morally ambiguous. Same thing, right? Exploring themes of moral ambiguity works great when our protagonist makes everyone's lives objectively worse and behaves like a 13-year-old sociopath on a power trip. The protagonist should lack any kind of redeeming quality, like having our hero slaughter innocents because of his character flaws. That will be shocking after the 4,000th time. Even though our hero does as much, if not more damage than the villain, the writer will still make the story demand you root for him even as he slaughters orphans along with the couples who were about to adopt them. Why have positive traits to stand in contrast with the setting and tone when our protagonist can have the worst aspects of both power fantasy and the anti-hero? Why does our protagonist behave so horribly? Because he's morally ambiguous. See, he's deep and complex. I'm sure the audience will buy that. If not, then, I need to kill off another character to distract everyone. Here is a puppy. Isn't this puppy adorable? You should get attached to this puppy. Oh no, it's dead. You should feel bad.
Literally just add rampant alcoholism, belching, constant ranting about how everyone is worthless, life is meaningless, and everyone is an idiot except him, and tell me that's not a 100% accurate description of Rick. Meaning that in the end, as MovieBob recently pointed out in a video on the Escapist channel, links down as the underbar, the self-pointing irony of the Rick and Morty fandom is that it idolizes and deifies Rick when the entire point of the series is that you're supposed to pity and revile him.
First, nihilism does not equal maturity. The old Max Payne had something he was fighting for. He didn't spend the entire game wanting to die or talking about how nothing mattered. Sure, he was a little cynical, but his perseverance and his underlying faith in what he was doing belied his cynicism and gave him some character. He was interesting because he was a fundamentally good guy trying to do the right thing under that veneer of wry cynicism. But with the new Max Payne, you are going to spend the first 2 hours of the game saying to yourself, alright, I get it. He drinks. Max spends most of his dialogue saying he hates himself and he believes in nothing and he wants to die. Fine, but that's not interesting. It's one-dimensional. We've all met real-life, super cynical people who claim to believe in nothing, and we know they're not engaging individuals. They're not the sort of people you want to spend dinner with or have tell you a story. Nihilism isn't mature. In fact, it's something most people eventually grow out of, and it doesn't make games more mature either. Hating everything and being dissatisfied with the world is not sufficient basis for a character. Unfortunately, in Max Payne 3, the setup doesn't allow for much else. Unlike in the previous games, Max has no personal connection to the people he's fighting for, and with the exception of one of his fellow bodyguards, none of the people he's doing so much killing for are eminently likable or even relatable. They're stereotypes of the detached rich. What are you going to get out of that? This, I believe, is all supposed to be a setup for a redemptive moment that never came. If you gotta go with a nihilistic protagonist, don't hamstring yourself with a world that's just as detached from feeling as the main character is. It's not the world we live in, and it's not a terribly interesting place to be either.